Hello everyone, thanks for joining me again for another video in this series, and today we're talking about the law of sacrifice. And the law of sacrifice says a leader must give up to go up. And the best way to explain this is to use a quote by Emerson which says, for everything you gain you must lose something. If you want to do exceptionally well on a test, it requires that you study. It requires that you put in the time to learn the content. If you want to lose weight, it requires that you put in time to exercise. It means that you might have to sacrifice the time that you'd have probably used otherwise to do recreational stuff, or what might be the case. But the reality is this: if you want to grow higher in your leadership, it requires that you make a sacrifice. And John Maxwell reminds us of three statements that we must think about when we think about sacrifice that is required of us in leadership. And he says, one, there's no success without sacrifice. He reminds us to just think about that. There's no leader, no one who achieved anything great who have achieved it without making significant sacrifice in their life. Whether it be time, energy, time with family, whatever might have been the case, you have to understand that if you're going to grow and go higher in leadership, there's a sacrifice. The second thing that he reminds us is that the higher the level of leadership, the greater the sacrifice. I'm sure if you have been a part of an organization, if you have just been a member of the organization, you know what have been a role. But when you got promotion to be in a PRO of something, or some member of that organization, got a promotion at work, you knew what was required of you, because it came with a job description of the things that would be required of you. Before, those weren't required of you. And you know that it would have taken you more time to get those things done, because the higher you go, the more sacrifice you have to make, the more is required of you. And it's very important that you understand that. And the third thing he spoke about, you have to give up to stay up. This is very, very important. Sometimes you have to understand the higher you go, as you make sacrifices, to stay on that level require that you make those sacrifices consistently. So for example, if you look at an athlete who performs very well at this level, at a local level, might require this level of sacrifice. But when he becomes an international athlete and he starts to perform probably in an international games, there's a certain higher level that is required of him. But for that athlete to continue to perform at that level, it requires that there are certain things that he must do to stay at that level. And that's what I want to remind you. You have to give up to stay at a particular level of leadership. And I know the essence is that you have to give up, but I want you to understand this. The higher you go, the price gets higher. And that's not just for leadership, that's for life. That's for everything that you think about in life. If you want to excel at anything, it requires sacrifice. It means you might have to sacrifice, recreational time to study so that you can master a particular area. It might require that you sacrifice temporary gratification for long-term success. Whatever it is, you have to understand that there is a price you have to pay. And especially in leadership, as you grow in leadership, more will be asked of you. And the more that is asked of you, the more will be required to accomplish those things. Again, I want to thank you for joining me on this leadership series as we speak about the law of sacrifice. Thanks again, and have a blessed day.